I grew up my whole life just thinking that if something's broken, I'll just go figure out how to fix it. I get really excited about things that really have never had attention given to them. When I worked at Smart Design, they redesigned the New York City taxi cab. At Frog, where I currently am now, they redesigned the New York City phone booth. So I was thinking, what is another iconic New York City thing that is really ripe for being fixed? I've got, at this point, lots of finished sketchbooks. Every single time I draw something, I make sure there is at least one element that is completely new and I've never done before. So this is actually a drawing of that up there, which my grandmother gave me for Christmas this year because I like collecting old military cases because they're perfect for holding markers. And I have a very massive marker collection. So yeah, I have a lot of markers and also always try and do something new whenever you do something. If you're repeating the same stuff over and over again, you're never going to improve. This right here is a prototype from a project I did in college with my friends James Connors and Oscar Salguero, where we basically designed a system for Haitians to make shoes in Haiti because there's a rule that if you don't own a pair of shoes, you can't go to school. This one was an interesting one where, talking about right out of school, getting out of your comfort zone, it was designing a breast pump cleaning set. So it's a good skill to have as a designer, just not feeling squeamish about talking about things and just getting out of your comfort zone to ask questions. I can't design for this group unless I go out and talk to them. So that's where design research really comes into play, is really understanding who people are by hearing it come from their mouths and not kind of assuming or extrapolating things onto what you think they want. The more research you put in, the more likely you are to actually have that right answer, and then you can go from there and start solving. How long have you been selling hot dogs for?
How long?
Yeah. Which hot dogs do you sell the most of every day? Which one's the most popular? I would just go out and talk to people as they were buying hot dogs, or talk to people who were actually selling them. And this is just something that I think gave me a lot of insight into what the pain points are. Ideating or ideation is the part where you're coming up with as many ideas as possible. It's your job as a designer to exhaustively think through every way that you can actually solve something. My main thought process behind this thing was making the food and the things that are in it the actual advertisement and easier to use, better customer experience, better vendor experience. Make it more of a holistic thing instead of what it is now where it was a cart and you can tell, okay, now we're gonna slap this on, now we're gonna put this on it, and then we're gonna put this on it, and it just looks like one giant Band-Aid after Band-Aid. This is usually a place where I've done a decent amount of quick ideation sketching, and I have a decent idea of what I want, and that's when I'll start roughing it out with a light gray marker. And I can end up with something very different on the same page, but still have it be super clean without having to sacrifice time. I usually try and have 3 to 5 concepts when I go into a presentation for a client, just to show enough breadth of ideas that we can really pick something as a team. So this feature I kind of liked, along with this cockpit one for this. So these two I'm going to call concept 1. I'll go in, I'll pick a new color, and then I'll start working on concept 2. For this one, I really liked this kind of long, kind of central island that has all the condiments and food in it. And I wanted to pair that with a concept that's a little bit longer, so one like this. So these I'm going to call concept 2. And then for the third concept, I actually kind of liked part of concept 1 just to stand alone. So this whole concept is going to get developed by itself, and that will be concept 3. Whenever I start a sketch for concept development in Sketchbook, I always like to do it very similar to my mark rendering style. I'm not super concerned about it all being perfect at this point, because what I'll do later, is basically I'll take this, put the opacity down, add a new layer on top of it, and then use that as a new underlay, which I'll put on my next sketch, because I know that I'm going to come back to this later and just clean it all up. Once I get to a place like this, I'll start making it a little bit tighter, and I like doing that with the line tool. And I love using the line tool probably the most out of all the tools because it's one that allows me to really quickly throw down those lines that are really straight and clean in a part of the process which they need to be very precise. So for this one, I wanted to use a very New York iconic color, which is the taxicab yellow. So you can see here, just by putting in some highlights, all of a sudden you can tell this is glass. My pillow texture goes from being flat to three-dimensional very quickly. And it's always important to notice there's always going to be a light source. So having the light source come down from the top of the umbrella, that one detail makes the NYC pop off way more on top of the yellow umbrella, and it really makes it feel like it's real and sitting in an actual environment. The huge advantage of it over actual physical sketching on paper is that everything is contained in one little object. I can basically put it in my backpack and I can bring my entire design studio with me. All of my concept presentations were in Sketchbook Pro. So concept one, called Central Park, really focuses on having the food as the central element that brings people in. Concept two is called Bushwick. The attraction is not just food, but also having potentially artwork from individual people that's highlighted on the cards to make them really integrate themselves into the cityscape. And concept three is for Times Square. It's all about being safe. Having very rounded edges means crowded streets. People aren't going to bump into corners and hurt themselves. I'll get my concepts to a place where they're pretty tight, but I need to start thinking through actual details. So that's why this guy up here represents this, but now I'm starting to think through, okay, do I really want this glass part to be this way, or can I jog it and change it? When I was a student, I thought no one wanted to see this because it's the dirty stuff behind the scenes. It's the things that aren't really full ideas. But this is actually, I call this the cement that holds my process together, where there are the big 5 pieces we talked about, but stuff like this are the little pieces that actually make it all make sense, and it's like the mortar between each of the bricks. In this case, it was a lot of CAD modeling. I used Fusion 360 to put this idea onto digital paper and actually start thinking about it from every single angle. And that's where I had to really start thinking about the height of the person, where the actual customer goes, how's the umbrella move? And that's the kind of stuff that starts taking that idea that was a sketch and starts making it something real. This is the finished model of the actual hot dog cart. So it's the kind of thing where I've worked through where all the different doors are, how the actual functionality works. I started thinking through it with ergonomics in mind.
Full-scale models take a long time to build. We can throw the model in VR in 10-15 minutes, so you can get a feel for how does this thing look from every angle, how does it look from far away, up close, how does it look from inside.
The first thing I notice is my grill feels tiny, so now I know after seeing it outside of just a render, I can go in with the CAD, actually make this bigger, have this thing feel much more substantial.
People hear about VR design, they think about designing for games or experiences in VR to show people, and the VR experience is the end product. The end product is going to be the hot dog cart, but we use VR as a tool to better understand it.
Before, you had to hand make everything. Now, I have a 3D printer in my apartment. So by speeding that up, it means much more quickly and cheaply, I can go through lots of ideas and get the right solution. Does this feel like the bottom is proportionally sized to the top? Does this cutout actually make sense? I think it feels nice. Like the plan for the whole cutout is that this can basically go up to the edge of the street, but he still has somewhere to stand, because I kept noticing vendors standing in the street because they had to pull their cart all the way to the edge so that way the people could have room to walk. This is something where you have to make the really great communicative ideas that you can put in front of somebody that they're going to understand what you meant for this product to be and do and how it's supposed to feel. Design is something that is never done, and I think people should think about themselves and their skills in the exact same way. Taking a hot dog cart, something that is extremely iconic but ripe for improvement, is a great example of things I think people should spend more time actually designing and putting their efforts towards. That's where I think the intersection of design and life really come together and make something special.